Hey everybody, it's time for His Messy Masterpiece video blog number 2. First, I wanted to start off just by saying thank you to everyone that commented last week. I was so encouraged by everybody that was encouraged, and it was just really encouraging. And that's what it's all about, just encouraging you. And I thought, what better day that we all could use some encouragement than on a Monday, because I know Monday is usually filled with a lot of madness, and it's not my favorite day of the week. So I thought today would be a great day to do video blog number 2. So I had been praying about it all week and been asking the Lord, what do you want me to blog about with the next video blog? And I had something in my mind, and then I love how God works. I sat down to read my Bible today, spending time with the Lord, and God totally just gave me a word, not only what I felt was like a word for myself, but also a word for you guys. And I love how God does that, because we can plan, but it's His plans that matter. And so today I was in the book of Deuteronomy, and I was reading about Moses. And I don't know if you're familiar with the Old Testament in the Bible, or even reading the Bible, but there's so many amazing stories that we think, oh, those are from 2,000 years ago. Those don't have anything to do with my life today. But that's so wrong. There are so many great stories and principles that we can apply to our everyday life. One of my favorite stories in the Bible is just about how God led the Israelites out of Egypt. So He did this amazing thing. They were stuck in slavery and bondage. And here God brings them out of Egypt. But then they began to travel the wilderness. And, in the wilderness is where they began to complain. And right there, I can tell you right at that point, I can totally identify with the Israelites. Every time I read their stories, I always feel like, and I pray, Lord, I don't want to be like the Israelites. I don't want to murmur and complain every time things get hard. I want to remember all the things that you've done in my life, because God has done above and beyond all I can think or imagine in so many situations in my life. And then I get to these places that are hard, or places that I feel stuck, and I can tend to forget about who God is and all that He's done. So as I was reading this morning, and I was reading about Moses and how he was kind of recapping with the Israelites all that God had done. And then I got to this verse where Moses said, that God had said, okay, it's time to get off this mountain, to break away from this camp and go. And that was just so encouraging, because it's like you're saying, it's time to move from where you're at. And maybe you don't feel like you're stuck up on a mountain right now. Maybe you feel like you're more in the valley, and God is telling you today it's time to move. And I don't know what your circumstances are. I don't know if you're stuck in sin, if you're stuck in a bad relationship, and God is saying, it's time to move. It's time to move on. Or maybe you're in a relationship that needs healing, but you're stuck in your own emotions and you've put this wall up, and God is saying, no, it's time to move. It's time to let Him come in and do that healing. Or, maybe you're just stuck with complacency. You're just completely comfortable, and God is saying, nope, it's time to move, because He wants to do more in your life. I don't know where you're at. I don't know what your mountain or your valley looks like, but I feel like God has such a word for you today, and He's saying it's time to move. It's time to break away, to go. And a lot of times when He's telling us to go, that can be scary. I don't know what that looks like for you, but I know when He was telling the Israelites, look, I'm going to bring you to this new land, they sent men to go out and scout the land, and it looked scary. It looked undoable. It looked like they wouldn't be able to do it, and they were afraid of what they saw, what they had to fight through to get to that land that God was promising them. And you know what? Sometimes it's a battle. When God says move, it's time to get going. It is a battle, but you have to take that step of faith. Take that step of faith and know that God has already gone before you. God had promised the Israelites this beautiful land, land flowing with milk and honey. And He was asking them to step out in faith, to trust Him and to move. And I know that trust is not always easy. It's not always an easy thing to trust God, especially when you don't see what's on the other side of the mountain. But it's worth trusting Him. I had just found myself in a similar situation just the last couple of weeks, where I was just kind of not complaining to the Lord, but finding myself in a place where I wanted to complain to the Lord, saying, Lord, you know, your word says to do this, and this is what I'm doing. Where are you in this? And every time I found myself, like the Israelites, wanting to complain, I would remember their story and say, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to complain. I'm going to trust the Lord. And I can just tell you that today, although I don't feel like God wants me to share all those circumstances, God totally blew my mind. And he came through in a way that I am just mind blown. I just started crying and just so thankful for God and his hand of provision and all that he does. And he is a God of his word. And you know what? He's not partial. He's not going to do for me what he's not willing to do for you. And sometimes we just find ourselves in those places that we're not going to trust the Lord, or we're so busy that we miss the blessing. I remember a few years ago, I was going through a Starbucks drive-thru with my husband, and we were on our way to church. We were trying to get to church, to clean the church, to get the family ministry ready. And we decided, you know, we're going to go through and get a coffee. Well, we pulled up to go in through the drive-thru, and there was another lady that pulled up at the same time as us. But, well, we were first. She was a little bit behind us. And so my husband, being the great man and the kind man that he is, he lets her go first. Well, we were running late. And so I kind of was like, why did you let her go first? We were clearly first, and we're running late. So the whole time that we're in this line, I began to kind of like give him a hard time. Like, oh man, always got to be the nice guy. You know, it's okay once in a while for us to go first. And, you know, we're late at church, and that's the priority. We need to get there and clean. And so I continue to kind of harass him a little bit as we're in this line. And just tell me, you know, you don't always have to be the nice guy, and it's okay to think about us. And then we got to the window, and when he went to go and pay, the lady at the window says, you know what? The car in front of you just took care of your whole bill. She just wanted me to tell you thank you so much for being kind and thinking of them and letting them go first, because you don't see that a lot in this day and age. And, you know, my husband looked at me and he told the lady, well, can you tell my wife that? And I just felt about this big, because you know what? Sometimes we're so busy. We're so busy in ritual or our everyday lives that we don't stop. We don't stop to do what God's asked us. We're not the ones to stop and to let someone go first, or to be kind, or to share a word of encouragement, and we miss the blessing in store for us. Now, let me tell you, I didn't deserve that free coffee, but I sure took it, and I was blessed by it, and that was just God's grace. And, you know, I feel like that when I was reading about the Israelites, God was so gracious in their murmuring and their complaining. He was gracious. He was above gracious to them, and God wants to do the same for you. So if you're stuck in a place that you want to get out of, and God is telling you today, you know, you've been there long enough. It's time to move. It's time to break camp and go. And so I just want to encourage you today that I felt like that was a word for me. That is a word for you. And go out and share that word. You know, I've been thinking a lot about just the massacre that happened in Orlando recently, and the families that are grieving and hurting, and the community that is just been displaced with fear and grief. And, you know, we may not be able to minister to the people of Orlando and the family just one-on-one. We can pray for them. But then I started thinking about, you know, life is but a vapor. So who's in your life today that you can minister to, that you can love them, regardless of circumstances or anything like that? You know, life is short. We're not promised tomorrow. So we do need to move. We do need to get out of our comfort zone. We do need to share the love of Jesus. We do need to be an encouragement. We do need to stop when God gives us an opportunity to bless somebody, and then to be blessed. So as always, signing off, be blessed and be a blessing, and I hope you're encouraged.